Hi there, I'm on my stepper here, listening to Korean. I'll shut him down here. Okay, now I'm on my stepper probably 3 or 4 times a week, especially the days that I don't play hockey. Sometimes I come home from hockey and get on the stepper. I don't know, get rid of the lactic acid in my legs, maybe, who knows. I'm always motivated to get on my stepper because it's a chance also to listen to Korean. So the two things kind of reinforce each other. I'm listening to, of course I turned it off, but this is a Bluetooth earphone set, which is great. And in a separate video I show the different kinds of earphones that I use. Right now I'm listening to difficult content. I'm picking out words here and there. And so in my strategy I'm varying, sort of dealing with some of the basic structures of the language on the one hand, then linking through difficult content, starting to accumulate new words so that I'll be able to understand more of this difficult content. Already I have the sense that I have a better sense of the definitions, or at least of when words end and new words begin. I recognize more words because the whole thing about language learning is noticing. And the more things you already see, the more new things you notice. The more things you already understand when you listen, the more new things you can start to notice. So I believe this strategy, and it's something I've mentioned in the past, sort of big picture on the one hand, listening to the language, and then focusing on some of the nuts and bolts, and gradually the two sort of strengthen each other, because it's not enough to understand the structure if you have no words to use with the structure. So it's not as if I don't focus on grammar. I do try to remind myself of the different patterns of the language, but I also want to get more of the language in me. And one great place to do that is right here on my stepper. So today, I had to do some work around the house again. I think we might have rats, so I had to rip up my deck, see if I could find any rat droppings. And while I was not ripping it up, because the deck is kind of in modules, so I can pull it up. So I had my Korean going while I was doing that. Any rats listening could learn Korean. Then my wife mentioned again our dry cleaning lady. I'm going to go up there and speak to her in Korean a bit. By the way, I happened to see a video with Moses, Lao Shu, going into some supermarket somewhere in the States, talking to people in Somali and Korean and Vietnamese. Very impressive. What impresses me with Moses is not only his ability to learn languages, but the genuinely warm, humble, engaging personality that he has. Me, I'm more of a cranky old guy maybe. But we all have our personalities. I think most of us mean well. Anyway, so this is me on my stepper. When I finish on my stepper here, I'm going to go for about 25 minutes. By the way, 25 minutes, 4 times a week. I mean, that's almost 2 hours right there. You add in my dishes, other odd chores, get a lot of listening. I find that reading is better for acquiring vocabulary. But, if you don't understand what you hear, you're nowhere. So I do a lot of reading. But even if I don't understand, I'm listening. And I'm listening to stuff that I can then read, review the words. And when I'm doing that, I'm noticing some of the words that I've looked up. I'm noticing some of the patterns. And all of that is sort of mutually reinforcing. And we often feel we're not making progress. And I think language learning is it's not a sprint. It's a long distance. It's an endurance activity. You have to believe that you're going to get there, and you just have to put in the time. And I'm quite confident that a month from now, I will notice a significant improvement. And hopefully, 3 months from now, enough to write that TOPIK exam. The one thing that scares me is writing with Hangul. I sat down a bit and again tried to type with Hangul. It's a lot to learn just how the words are formed, where the keys are located on the keyboard, and I haven't even started writing the longhand. But all these things, you have to do them one slice at a time. Sometimes if you look at the enormity of the task, you think you'll never get there. But if you kind of slice it a little bit at a time, salami fashion, you know, one step at a time. In fact, that reminds me, this monologue is getting longer here, that reminds me when I was studying Chinese, there was the famous Lao San Pian. Lao San Pian is the 3 famous essays written by Mao. One is in praise of Norman Bethune. There isn't a Chinese person who doesn't know the name of Norman Bethune, although most Canadians have never heard of him. A Canadian doctor who served with the Communist Army in the late 30s and who died in China. The second essay is To Serve the People, Wei Renmin Fu. And the third one is Yu Gong Yishan, the foolish old man who tried to move a mountain. And that story is as follows. This old man was digging this mountain that was somehow in the way of his rice field or something. And people came by and said, "You are a very foolish man. You're not going to be able to dig that mountain away." And he said, "Well, I'll dig for as long as I can, and then my son will dig, and his son will dig. And the mountain is not going to get any bigger, so eventually we will remove that mountain." And language learning is a bit like that. There's so many words to learn. There's so much to do in terms of getting your brain accustomed to this new language. At times it seems like an impossible task. But if you put in the time and you stay with the process, just like that foolish old man, except it won't take generations, you will get there, one small step at a time. And now I'll go focus on my run, and I'll put my, in fact, I will put my Korean back on here. Hello. Here we are. Okay. Talk to you later. Another thing that I do on the stepper is read on my iPad. And of course, this is a lesson that I've already studied on Link. And so here on my iPad, it's not very visible, but I can look up words that I don't know. These are all my links that I have saved, and I often refer to them as I go through the lesson. So on the stepper is another opportunity to read.